The biting December wind whipped through the deserted streets of Boston, carrying with it the last vestiges of the day. Mariana Chen, 28, hurried up the worn steps of her apartment building, her numb fingers clutching the strap of her worn handbag. After 12 hours alternating between the cafe where she was a waitress and the municipal library where she cleaned at night, her body was begging for a rest. The corridor on the third floor was as silent as ever, illuminated by the flickering yellow light that had never been properly repaired. Mariana was used to this dance of shadows, as well as the musty smell that mixed with the aroma of food coming from the neighboring apartments. When she reached door 302, her ears picked up a different sound, a low cry, almost a whisper. At first, she thought it was just another noise from the building's old pipes, but something deep inside her made her stop. The cry came again, this time clearer. "It must be tiredness playing tricks on me," she muttered to herself. But as she lowered her eyes, her heart almost stopped. There, by her door, was a wicker basket carefully covered with a light blue blanket. With trembling hands, Mariana knelt down. Time seemed to slow down as she gently pulled away the blanket, revealing a baby who was no more than a few weeks old. His cheeks were pink from the cold, and his little eyes, watery with tears, met hers with an intensity that left her breathless. "Oh my God," she whispered, instinctively taking the baby into her arms. He was surprisingly warm, thanks to the many blankets wrapped around him. As she moved, a white envelope fell out of the basket. With the baby held in one arm, Mariana hurriedly unlocked the door and entered her small apartment. Only after settling the little one in his bed, surrounded by pillows, did she allow herself to open the letter with trembling fingers. "To whoever finds my son, my name doesn't matter, but the love I have for this boy is greater than anything I've ever felt. I'm dying, a terminal cancer that won't give me more than a few weeks. I have no family, and his father, he never knew about the pregnancy. His father is Alexander Reed, the CEO of Reed Enterprises. We were very different. Me, a street artist. Him, a powerful businessman. Our romance was brief but intense. When I found out I was pregnant, he had already left to expand his business in Europe. I don't blame him. I chose not to tell him, knowing that our lives would take different paths. But now, I need to make sure my son has a chance. I've watched this building for days, seen how the residents greet each other, how they look after each other. And I saw you, always kind, always smiling, even though you looked so tired. I apologize for the responsibility I'm imposing, but something tells me you have the heart my son needs. He was born on November 15th. He doesn't have a name yet. I wanted whoever raised him to have that honor. Please take care of him. Give him the love I won't be able to give. With hope and gratitude, a mother who loves too much to let her son suffer." Mariana reread the letter 3 times, silent tears streaming down her face. The baby began to cry again, and she instinctively picked him up, cradling him gently. "Shh, it's all right, little one," she murmured, her voice breaking. "It's all right now." Watching the little face that was gradually calming down in her arms, Mariana felt something awaken in her chest, a warmth, a certainty that defied all logic. Her mind screamed about the difficulties. Her salary barely covered her own expenses. Her apartment was tiny. She knew nothing about raising a child. But her heart had already made an irrevocable decision. "Lucas," she said softly, the name appearing in her mind as if it had always been there, waiting for this moment. "You look like a Lucas." The baby opened his eyes, focusing on her with surprising clarity. Mariana smiled through her tears, knowing that her life had changed forever that cold December night. It was hours before Lucas finally fell asleep. Mariana watched him, exhausted but unable to sleep. Her mind was buzzing with practical worries. She would need diapers, milk, clothes, a crib. She needed to learn about documentation, about basic care, about everything. But as she watched Lucas sleep peacefully, an inexplicable peace enveloped her. It wouldn't be easy, but she would make it work. It had to. "It's just you and me now, little Lucas," she whispered, gently stroking the baby's hand. "And I promise I'll do everything I can to be the mother you deserve." Outside, the snow was beginning to fall softly over Boston, covering the city in a silent white blanket. It was as if the universe itself was blessing the beginning of this unexpected journey. A journey of love, courage, and transformation that had only just begun. The sun had barely risen when Mariana woke up startled. For a moment, she thought it was all just a dream, but the small sigh coming from the makeshift crib, a drawer lined with blankets, brought her back to reality. Lucas was there, and with him, a mountain of challenges to face. With the $237 she had saved for emergencies, Mariana ran to the nearest 24-hour pharmacy as soon as dawn broke. The clerk, a gray-haired lady named Beverly, noticed her lost gaze among the shelves of baby products. "First time as a mother, dear?" Beverly asked gently, approaching. Mariana hesitated for a moment. "Yes," she replied, deciding it was the simplest truth. "I'm a bit overwhelmed." "We all are." Beverly smiled, starting to select essential items. "Let's start with the basics. Diapers, wipes, powdered milk specifically for newborns." For the next hour, Beverly became a guardian angel, guiding Mariana through the essential products and offering precious tips on basic care. When the total came to $198, Mariana felt a tightness in her chest, but knew that every penny was necessary. Back at the apartment, she found Mrs. Martinez, her neighbor from 301, knocking on her door with a worried expression. "Mariana, darling, I heard a baby crying all night. Is everything all right?" Clutching the bags from the pharmacy, Mariana felt the tears welling up. In a matter of minutes, she was sitting on Mrs. Martinez's worn-out sofa, Lucas in her arms, pouring out the whole story. "Dios mío," Mrs. Martinez whispered, her kind eyes shining with determination. "You're not alone in this, mi hija." Over the next few hours, Mariana's small apartment turned into an operations center. Mrs. Martinez summoned other residents of the building. Rosa from the second floor brought clothes that had been her grandson's. Gloria from the second floor showed up with an old crib she kept in the basement. And Catherine, a retired nurse from the fourth floor, offered to teach Mariana about basic baby care. "The trick is to hold the little head like this," Catherine demonstrated, helping Mariana give Lucas his first bath. Firm, but gentle. Mariana's hands were shaking, but Catherine's calm presence helped her gain confidence. Lucas, surprisingly, seemed to like the warm water, his attentive little eyes fixed on Mariana's face. "You're doing very well," Catherine assured him. "Motherhood is like that. You learn one day at a time." In the evening, alone with Lucas, Mariana faced her first big challenge. The baby was crying inconsolably, and nothing she had learned during the day seemed to work. "Please, my love," she begged, pacing back and forth in the small apartment. "Tell me what you need." After what seemed like hours, Mariana began to softly sing an old lullaby that her own mother used to sing. Gradually, Lucas's sobs subsided until he fell asleep in her arms. "We did it, little one," she whispered, kissing his forehead softly. "We did it." The next day, Mariana faced another reality. She had to get back to work. Heartbroken, she called her employers. The cafe where she worked as a waitress allowed her to take Lucas, as long as he stayed in the back office. The library, on the other hand, "I'm sorry, Mariana," the supervisor said. "We can't have a baby during the night shift." Losing her job at the library meant $600 less a month, a devastating blow to her already tight budget. But when she looked at Lucas, sleeping peacefully, Mariana felt a fierce determination grow inside her. "We'll manage," she promised, more to herself than to the baby. Over the next few weeks, a routine began to establish itself. During the day, Mariana worked in the cafe with Lucas close by, receiving occasional help from the other waitresses who had fallen in love with the baby. At night, while he slept, she did online typing jobs that Catherine helped her find. Money was tight, the nights were long, and there were times when Mariana questioned her ability to keep going. But then Lucas would smile. His first real smile came during a particularly difficult early morning, and all the tiredness seemed worth it. A month after Lucas arrived, Mariana received an unexpected visit from social worker Patricia Reynolds. Someone had reported the presence of a baby in her apartment. "I need to understand the situation," Patricia explained, her tone professional but not unkind. Mariana showed the letter from the birth mother, explained the adaptations she had made to the apartment, and introduced the support network that had formed in the building. Patricia watched everything carefully, taking notes. "Do you understand that there are legal procedures to be followed?" Patricia finally asked. "Yes," Mariana replied, holding Lucas closer. "And I'll do whatever is necessary. He's my son now." Patricia observed the interaction between the two for a moment, her gaze softening. I'll help you with the temporary custody process, she said, but we'll need to settle this situation properly. That night, after putting Lucas to sleep in his crib, now properly assembled and positioned next to his bed, Mariana allowed herself to cry silently. They weren't tears of sadness or fear, but of gratitude and determination. In just 1 month, her life had changed completely. Her apartment, once empty and silent, was now full of life. Her days, once predictable, were now a constant adventure, and her heart, which she didn't even know was incomplete, now overflowed with a love that grew every day. One step at a time, she whispered to herself, repeating Catherine's words. This was how she and Lucas were learning to be mother and son. One day, one challenge, one victory at a time. Sunday morning was waking lazily over Boston, when a joyful cry echoed through apartment 302. "Mom, look! I managed to tie my sneakers all by myself." Mariana looked up from her pancake batter to find Lucas standing proudly in the kitchen doorway. His shoelaces were in a creative mess of knots, but the smile on his face was worth more than any perfect bow. "Wow, my love, you're getting very clever," she smiled, bending down to discreetly adjust the laces. "Now come and have some coffee. I made your favorite pancakes." 4 years had passed since that December night, and time had transformed not only the little baby left on her doorstep, but also the apartment and Mariana herself. The walls, once empty, now displayed colorful drawings made by tiny artistic hands. Photos documented precious moments. The first birthday, the first steps, the first day at nursery school. Lucas, now a vibrant 4 years old, was an extraordinarily perceptive and affectionate child. His green-brown eyes, inherited from a father he didn't know, shone with an insatiable curiosity about the world. "Mommy," Lucas asked, chewing on a pancake covered in strawberry syrup, "why is the sky blue?" "Well," Mariana began, but was interrupted by knocks on the door. "Good morning, family," Mrs. Martinez's cheerful voice echoed through the apartment. "I've brought those loaves of bread that Lucas loves." Over the years, the support network that began the day Lucas arrived had become a real family. Mrs. Martinez was the grandmother Lucas never had, always showing up with treats and fascinating stories from her native Cuba. "Grandma Martinez." Lucas ran to hug her, his small hands already reaching for the bag of bread. "Mi pequeño?" she smiled, handing Mariana an envelope as well. "This arrived for you last night." "It was in my mailbox by mistake." Mariana opened the envelope while Lucas entertained Mrs. Martinez with his latest discovery about dinosaurs. It was confirmation of his enrollment in the evening business course. After years of saving and working extra jobs, she would finally be able to go back to school. The cafe where she worked had become her safe haven. The owner, Mr. Patterson, had not only allowed her to bring Lucas in when needed, but had also promoted her to assistant manager the previous year. "You have a talent for business, Mariana," he always said. "You just need the formal education to go further." "Mom, can I go play in the park today?" Lucas' voice brought her back to the present. "Of course, my love. But first," she pointed to the small study table in the corner of the room, where the activity books were waiting for him. Lucas made an adorable face, but obeyed. His preschool teacher, Miss Wilson, always praised his early development in reading and mathematics, the result of the evenings when Mariana, exhausted though she was, took the time to teach him his first letters and numbers. In the afternoon, at the neighborhood playground, Mariana watched Lucas playing with other children. Her heart squeezed a little at the sight of a close-knit traditional family, father, mother, and children playing together. Sometimes, especially at night when the silence was heavier, she wondered if she was doing enough, if Lucas didn't miss a father. "He has all the love in the world," Mrs. Martinez used to say, as if reading her thoughts, "and sometimes all the love in the world comes in different packages." "Mom, look at this," Lucas shouted from the top of the slide, snapping her out of her thoughts. His smile was as bright as the autumn sun. Later, after a simple but nutritious dinner, it was time for their favorite evening ritual, story time. Lucas snuggled up in his bed, decorated with fluorescent stars on the ceiling, Catherine's gift for his last birthday. "Will you tell me the story of when I arrived?" he asked, as he often did. "It was a very special night," Mariana began, her voice soft. The sky was full of stars, and something magical was about to happen. She told the story like a fairy tale, omitting the more complex details, but keeping the essence of the love at first sight she felt when she met him. Lucas always fell asleep before the end, a serene smile on his little face. That night, after Lucas had gone to sleep, Mariana organized her notes for the course she was about to start. On the wall, a calendar marked important milestones over the last 4 years: Lucas's first mama, his first steps, the approval of permanent custody after months of visits from the social worker. The phone vibrated with a message from Catherine. "I can stay with him on school nights. Everything will be fine." Mariana smiled, feeling that familiar mixture of gratitude and determination that had accompanied her since the first night. It wasn't a perfect or easy life, but it was theirs. Every challenge overcome, every smile shared, every small victory had built something precious and unique. A soft noise came from Lucas's room. She went there, finding him sleeping peacefully, his favorite teddy bear tightly hugged. She smoothed the blanket over him and kissed his forehead. "I love you more than anything, my little miracle," she whispered. Back in the living room, Mariana couldn't imagine that her carefully constructed world was about to change drastically. Somewhere in Boston, Alexander Reed was leafing through old documents, about to discover a secret that would transform 3 lives forever. The office on the 40th floor of Reed Enterprises dominated the Boston skyline. Alexander Reed, 42, watched the city through the floor-to-ceiling windows, his mind far removed from the financial spreadsheets that covered his mahogany desk. In his hands, a yellowed briefcase contained the last belongings of Regina Martinez, no relation to the Mrs. Martinez of Mariana's building, a street artist who had died 4 years ago. The law firm responsible for the estate had finally located the briefcase in an abandoned warehouse. "Impossible," muttered Alexander, rereading the diary found among the belongings for the 10th time. The pages revealed a story he had never imagined: the hidden pregnancy, the child he never knew existed, her decision to protect the child. Mr. Reed, his assistant, Victoria, interrupted his thoughts. "The private investigator has arrived." Maxwell Porter, a former Boston police detective, entered the office carrying a slim briefcase. "I have the information you requested, Mr. Reed. It wasn't difficult to trace the baby left behind that night." Meanwhile, on the other side of town, Mariana was helping Lucas get ready for school. "Mommy, can I take the T-Rex today? It's show and tell day." "Of course, love. But remember what we agreed about sharing?" "Yes. I'll let everyone hold him carefully," Lucas replied, hugging the stuffed dinosaur. Breakfast was going normally when Mariana's phone rang. It was Patricia Reynolds, the social worker who had been following Lucas' case. "Mariana, we need to talk in person. It's urgent." The tone in her voice made Mariana's heart freeze. "Has something happened? We'd better talk in person. Can I stop by the cafe where you work this afternoon?" After dropping Lucas off at school, Mariana could hardly concentrate on her work. Her hands trembled slightly as she served customers, her mind filled with worrying scenarios. "Are you okay?" Mr. Patterson asked, noticing her restlessness. "Yes, She hesitated. "Patricia Reynolds wants to see me today. Something about Lucas." Mr. Patterson, who had become a father figure to Mariana in recent years, squeezed her shoulder gently. "It'll be all right, dear. You're an excellent mother." In the afternoon, Patricia arrived at the cafe accompanied by a man Mariana didn't know. Maxwell Porter introduced himself as a private investigator, and Mariana's world began to fall apart. Lucas's biological father found out about his existence. Patricia explained softly. "Alexander Reed wants to meet his son." Mariana felt the ground disappear beneath her feet. Her hands clutched her apron tightly, searching for something to anchor herself in reality. He can't just show up like this." Her voice shook. "Lucas is my son. I have final custody. Legally, Mr. Reed has rights," Maxwell interjected. "He didn't know his son existed. That changes the legal landscape." Patricia, sensing the panic in Mariana's eyes, quickly added, "Mr. Reed doesn't want to cause any trauma. He's asked for an initial meeting just to talk. And if I refuse, he has the resources for a legal battle," Maxwell replied honestly. But he emphasized that he prefers a friendly approach. That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana collapsed on the sofa. Mrs. Martinez, who had stayed with Lucas during the meeting, held her hand. "Mijija, you're his mother in every way that matters," she consoled. "No one can change that." "But what if he wants to take Lucas away from me?" Mariana sobbed. "What if he succeeds? He has money, power, and you have love. dedication, and 4 years of memories. Mrs. Martinez replied firmly. That counts for a lot too. The next morning, Mariana received a formal email from Alexander Reed's office, requesting a meeting for the following week. Enclosed was a current photo of him, a tall, elegant man with the same green-brown eyes as Lucas. Throughout the week, Mariana watched Lucas more intensely than ever, memorizing every smile, every gesture. At school, during break time, she watched him playing with his friends, her heart squeezing with fear for the future. "Mom, why are you sad?" Lucas asked one evening, his small hand touching her cheek. "I'm not sad, my love." She forced a smile. "Just thinking. When you think too much, you look like that," he said, imitating her worried expression so comically that she couldn't help but laugh genuinely. The day before the meeting, Mariana couldn't sleep. She leafed through the photo album that documented her life with Lucas. The first Christmas and birthdays, days in the park, simple everyday moments that had become precious. "I won't let anyone take you away from me," she whispered to the most recent photo, where Lucas was smiling, showing the drawing he had made of their family, him, Mariana, Mrs. Martinez, Catherine, and even Mr. Patterson. The day of the meeting arrived on a gray autumn morning. Mariana carefully chose her best outfit, a simple but elegant ensemble she had bought for school meetings. Catherine would be staying with Lucas during the meeting. "Remember," Catherine said as she hugged her, "you're the mother he knows and loves. That carries a lot of weight." In the elevator of the imposing Reed Enterprises building, Mariana took a deep breath, trying to control the trembling in her hands. In her handbag, she carried photos of Lucas, ready to show how happy and well cared for he was. The elevator doors opened on the 40th floor, and Mariana took a step forward, knowing that her life was about to change drastically once again. But now, unlike that night 4 years ago, she wasn't alone. She had a mother's fierce love to fight for. The Reed Enterprises boardroom emanated power. Through the panoramic windows, Boston seemed tiny, but Mariana remained upright, her hands firmly intertwined over the folder with Lucas' photos. Alexander Reed entered the room with determined steps, but his eyes revealed a vulnerability that surprised Mariana. For a moment, no one spoke. It was impossible not to notice the similarities between him and Lucas. The same shape of the eyes, the same determined chin. "Miss Chen," Alexander broke the silence, his voice softer than she had expected. "Thank you for coming." "I didn't have much choice," Mariana replied, trying to keep her voice steady. Alexander sat down opposite her, unbuttoning his impeccably cut jacket. "I understand your apprehension, but I want you to know that I don't intend to cause you any trauma. I just want to get to know my son." "Lucas," Mariana corrected automatically. "That's his name." A small smile touched Alexander's lips. "Lucas," he repeated, as if savoring the name. "Can you tell me about him?" Mariana opened her briefcase, spreading some photos out on the table. "He's brilliant," she began, her voice gaining strength as she spoke of her son. "He loves dinosaurs, he can read a few words on his own, and he has a huge heart." Alexander picked up a photo in which Lucas was smiling, showing a drawing. His fingers trembled slightly. "He looks like her," he murmured. "Regina," Mariana said softly. "She made an impossible choice for love." "I should have been there." Alexander wiped his hand across his face. "If I'd known, but you didn't," Mariana interrupted gently. "And now Lucas has an established life, a routine, people who love him." The meeting continued for 2 hours. Alexander asked questions about every aspect of Lucas: life, his health, education, friends, likes and fears. Mariana answered everything with a mixture of maternal pride and protective caution. "I want to get to know him," Alexander finally declared, "but I want to do it the right way without scaring him." After much discussion, a plan was hatched. The first meeting would be casual, in the park where Lucas used to play. Alexander would be introduced as a family friend, giving Lucas time to get used to his presence. On the agreed Saturday, Mariana arrived at the park with her heart in her throat. Lucas ran ahead of her, excited at the prospect of playing on the new slide. Alexander was already there, wearing jeans and a casual shirt, a drastic change from his usual business suit. When her eyes met Lucas, for the first time, Mariana saw unshed tears glisten. "Hi, champ," Alexander said, approaching cautiously. "You must be Lucas." Lucas, normally sociable, partially hid behind Mariana. "Mom?" It's all right, love. This is Mr. Reed, a friend of Mom's. Do you like dinosaurs? Alexander asked, pulling a small stuffed velociraptor out of his pocket. Lucas's eyes sparkled with interest. That's a velociraptor. They hunted in groups and were very intelligent. The initial ice began to melt as Lucas enthusiastically explained about different dinosaurs. Alexander listened with genuine interest, occasionally asking questions that made Lucas even more excited. Mom, Mr. Reed knows a lot about dinosaurs too, Lucas exclaimed, jumping up and down with excitement. Mariana watched the interaction with mixed emotions. It was undeniable that there was a natural connection between father and son, even if Lucas didn't know it. Even so, every smile Lucas gave Alexander seemed to scratch her heart. The meeting lasted 2 hours. When Lucas finally got tired, he fell asleep on the park bench, his head resting on Mariana's lap. He's amazing, Alexander said softly, his eyes fixed on his sleeping son. You've done an extraordinary job, Mariana. He's my whole life, she replied simply. Over the next few meetings, Alexander became a more constant presence. He always brought little educational gifts, books about dinosaurs, puzzles, thinking games. Lucas began to look forward to his visits. Mr. Reed promised to take me to the Natural History Museum, Lucas announced one day during dinner. Mariana felt a tightness in her chest. Is that so? Yes. He said there are real dinosaurs there. You're going too, aren't you, Mom? Of course, my love. She forced a smile. That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana received a message from Alexander. I'm sorry I didn't consult you before about the museum. I should have asked you first. But I want you to know that I completely respect your role as his mother. Every decision will always be discussed with you. Mariana reread the message several times, feeling a slight sense of relief. Maybe, just maybe, they could find a compromise that would benefit Lucas. The visit to the museum took place on a sunny Sunday. Lucas was ecstatic, running from exhibit to exhibit, his eyes shining with fascination. Alexander proved to be a patient guide, answering every question carefully. In a quiet moment, while Lucas was mesmerized by a T-Rex skeleton, Alexander approached Mariana. Thank you, he said softly. For what? For giving him all the love I couldn't give him over the years. For being the mother he needed. For allowing me to be a part of his life now. Mariana felt tears forming. I just want him to be happy. Me too, Alexander replied, watching Lucas as he waved frantically at them, pointing to yet another exciting discovery. The day ended with an exhausted but happy Lucas asleep in the back of Alexander's car, who insisted on driving them home. Good night, champ, Alexander whispered, helping Mariana carry Lucas into the apartment. When she closed the door after Alexander left, Mariana realized that something had changed. The initial fear was being replaced by something different, a cautious hope that maybe, just maybe, there was room for everyone in this story. Autumn was advancing over Boston, painting the trees red and gold, while Mariana's life continued its own transformation. Sitting at her small study desk, she tried to concentrate on her notes from her business course, but her mind wandered to the events of the last few weeks. Alexander had become an increasingly constant presence in Lucas' life. Twice a week, punctually at 5 p.m., his black Mercedes would park in front of the building to take Lucas to different activities, swimming lessons, visits to museums, afternoons in the park. Mom, look what Mr. Reed got me, Lucas exclaimed that afternoon, holding a beginner's telescope. He said we're going to see the stars at the weekend. Mariana forced a smile, but her stomach churned. Each new gift, each new planned activity, seemed to diminish her role in her son's life a little more. How could she compete with someone who could offer her the whole world? Mi hija, Mrs. Martinez said during one of their nightly chats after Lucas had gone to sleep. I see that worry eating you up inside. It's just, Mariana hesitated, tears threatening to fall. What if one day Lucas prefers to live with him? Alexander can give you everything I never could. Love can't be bought with gifts, Mrs. Martinez replied firmly. Lucas has your heart, Mariana. That's worth more than all the telescopes in the world. But the insecurities persisted, especially on the nights when Lucas returned from his activities with Alexander brimming with enthusiasm. Mr. Reed knows a real scientist, Mom. He works with fossils and everything. Each new report was a little stab in the heart, not out of jealousy, but out of fear. Fear of losing the son she had raised alone for 4 years. Fear of becoming secondary in his life. One afternoon, While organizing the shelves in the cafe, Mariana was surprised by Alexander's arrival. It was unusual to see him there, especially without Lucas. "Can we talk?" he asked, his tone gentle but serious. Mr. Patterson, sensing the tension, offered his office for the conversation. Mariana sat rigidly, her hands clenching her apron. "Lucas told me you're going to college," Alexander began. "Yes, an evening course in business administration. That's admirable," he said sincerely. "But it must be difficult to balance work, studies, and—" He hesitated. "Our new situation. I can manage," Mariana replied defensively. "I didn't come to criticize," Alexander hastened to say. "I came to offer help. I can set up a fund for Lucas' education, make sure he has access to the best schools, and—" He paused, choosing his words carefully. "I'd like to help with his studies, too." Mariana felt her face burn. "I don't need charity." "It's not charity, Mariana. It's an investment in our son's future." The word "our" hit her like a punch. It was the first time Alexander had referred to Lucas in that way. "You've been an extraordinary mother," he continued. "Lucas is intelligent, kind and happy, and that's to your credit. But now you don't have to do everything yourself." The tears Mariana had been holding back finally overflowed. "I'm so afraid," she confessed in a whisper. "Afraid of losing him." Alexander was silent for a moment, then pulled something out of his pocket. It was an old photo of him with Regina, Lucas's biological mother. "She was extraordinary," he said softly. "A street artist, full of life and dreams. We fell in love quickly, but we were from very different worlds. When I left for Europe, I promised to come back. I never knew about the pregnancy." Mariana looked at the photo, noticing the happiness in both their eyes. "Regina made the most selfless choice possible," Alexander continued. "She found you, Mariana. Of all the people in Boston, she chose you to raise our son. And now I understand why." His words touched something deep in Mariana. It was the first time anyone had recognized that Regina's choice had not been random. "I don't want to take Lucas from you," Alexander said with conviction. "I want us to be partners in raising him. You're his mother, Mariana. That will never change." That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana watched her son sleep. The small telescope rested on the table, along with several drawings of dinosaurs and a new astronomy book. "Mommy," Lucas murmured sleepily, "are you going to see the stars with us this weekend too?" "Do you want me to go, love?" "Of course. Mr. Reed says there's room for everyone in the universe, just like there's room for all the planets." Mariana smiled through her tears, kissing her son's forehead. Maybe Mrs. Martinez was right. Maybe there was enough room in their hearts for everyone. The following week, Mariana accepted Alexander's help with her studies, not for herself, but for Lucas. Little by little, tensions began to ease. She began to see that she wasn't losing her son. She was gaining an ally in the most important mission of her life, to make Lucas happy. One night, as the three of them watched the stars through the telescope, Lucas among them, Mariana realized that her greatest fear was turning into her greatest strength. Her love for Lucas was great enough to transcend insecurities and create bridges where there had previously only been walls. "Look, a shooting star," Lucas shouted excitedly. "I'm going to make a wish." Mariana and Alexander exchanged a look of understanding. Sometimes, the best gifts we can give our children are not material things, but the ability to grow up in an environment of love and mutual understanding. Winter arrived in Boston, bringing not only snow, but also significant changes in the dynamic between Mariana, Alexander, and Lucas. What began as scheduled meetings twice a week naturally evolved into a more fluid and comfortable routine. One particularly frosty morning, Mariana received an unexpected call from Alexander. "There's an important presentation at school today, isn't there?" His voice sounded worried. "I see it's snowing a lot." "Yes," Mariana replied, watching the snow from the window. "Lucas is so excited about his project on the solar system. I can pick them up. My car is safer in this weather, so no one will be late." Minutes later, the three of them were on their way to school, Lucas in the back seat, excitedly rehearsing his presentation. "And Jupiter is the biggest planet in the solar system. It even has a giant storm that lasts more than 300 years. Alexander smiled through the rearview mirror, while Mariana helped Lucas hold up the posters he had prepared. At school, Miss Wilson, the teacher, was impressed to see the three of them arrive together. "Lucas is so lucky," she commented quietly to Mariana. "It's not often you see separated parents getting on so well." The word separated took Mariana by surprise. She had never thought of it that way. After all, she and Alexander had never been a couple. But to the outside world, that's how they looked. Separated parents sharing the upbringing of their son. Lucas' presentation was a success. His passion for astronomy, fueled by his time with the telescope, shone through in every word. When he finished, both Mariana and Alexander applauded with pride. "Did you see?" Lucas ran up to them after the presentation. "I haven't forgotten a thing. You were amazing, my love." Mariana hugged him. "How about a special lunch to celebrate?" Alexander suggested. The restaurant they chose was elegant, but cozy. Lucas, even still wearing his bow tie from the presentation, was talking animatedly about how his colleagues had been impressed by his knowledge of black holes. "Mr. Reed," Lucas said suddenly, his voice more serious, "why do you call Mom Mariana and not Ms. Chen like the other adults?" Alexander choked slightly on his coffee, exchanging a quick glance with Mariana. "Well," he began cautiously, "when people become close friends, it's normal to use first names, like me and Tommy from school." "Exactly," Mariana smiled, grateful for the simplicity of the explanation. But Lucas wasn't finished. "Tommy said that your parents were separated before, but now they live together again because they love each other. Are you going to live together one day too?" The silence that followed was deafening. Mariana felt her face burn, while Alexander suddenly seemed very interested in his napkin. "Lucas," Mariana began gently, "sometimes families are different from each other. The important thing is that both Mr. Reed and I love you very much. But wouldn't it be nice? Then I could have my telescope in the same place as my dinosaurs." Alexander snorted. "How about ice cream for dessert?" The change of subject worked temporarily, but Lucas' question hung over them for the rest of the day. In the evening, after dropping them off at home, Alexander called Mariana. "We need to talk about how to deal with these questions," he said. "Lucas is smart. He'll make more connections." "I know," Mariana sighed. "But how do we explain something so complicated to a 4-year-old? Maybe we can try to be more than just two adults sharing his upbringing. Could we be real friends?" The proposal caught Mariana off guard. "Friends? Yes. No pressure, no expectations other than to make it more natural for Lucas." Over the next few weeks, they began to build this friendship. They shared stories about their pasts during times when Lucas played in the park. Alexander talked about his privileged but lonely childhood, and Mariana told him about coming to the United States as a teenager with her parents. One day, Alexander showed up at the cafe outside of his usual hours, carrying a pile of books. "They're about financial management and entrepreneurship," he explained. "I thought they might help with your course." Mariana flipped through the books, noticing the notes in the margins. "Did you read them?" "I marked the most relevant parts," he smiled. "I also started out as a small businessman, before I inherited my father's company." These conversations were creating a new dynamic between them. It was no longer just about Lucas. It was about two people discovering that they had more in common than they had imagined. During a particularly cold weekend, Alexander invited them to spend the day at his house. Lucas was amazed by the private library, especially when he discovered an entire section dedicated to scientific books. "Can I read them all?" he asked hopefully. "When you're older," Mariana laughed. "But you can choose some for us to take home," Alexander added, winking at Mariana. Watching Lucas explore the library, Mariana noticed how Alexander had changed since their first meeting. The rigid executive had given way to a caring and attentive father. "He makes me want to be a better person," Alexander commented softly, as if reading her thoughts. "I know exactly how it is," Mariana smiled. "Lucas has that effect on people." Later that day, as they drove home, Lucas slept in the back seat, cuddled up with his new books. "Thank you," Mariana said softly, "for everything." "Thank you," Alexander replied, "for giving me the chance to be part of this family." The word family echoed in Mariana's heart. Perhaps Lucas was right. There were different types of families, and theirs was finding its own unique path. Spring arrived in Boston, bringing not only flowers, but also a series of subtle changes that neither Mariana nor Alexander had expected. What had begun as a cautious friendship with Lucas was blossoming into something deeper. One afternoon in April, during one of Mariana's evening classes, an emergency arose. Lucas had developed a high fever at school, and Miss Wilson was unable to contact Mariana, who was sitting an important exam. Alexander received the call in the middle of a crucial meeting with international investors. Without hesitation, he apologized to those present and hurried out. "But sir," his assistant Victoria protested, "this contract is worth millions." "My son is sick," he replied simply, already in the elevator. Arriving at the school, he found Lucas burning up with fever, curled up in the infirmary. "Hey, champ," he whispered, picking the boy up. "Let's take care of you." Instead of taking Lucas to his mansion equipped with every comfort, Alexander took him to Mariana's family apartment down, where he knew his son would feel safer. He spent the next few hours applying cold compresses, taking his temperature and telling stories about constellations to distract Lucas from his fever. Mariana rushed in as soon as she received the messages, finding a scene that left her speechless. Alexander asleep in the bedroom armchair, Lucas asleep on his chest, both covered in the boy's favorite blanket. "He hasn't left Lucas's side for a minute," Mrs. Martinez whispered, having followed everything. "He canceled an important meeting and everything." Something changed that night. The dynamic between them shifted subtly, as if one last barrier had fallen. Over the next few days, while Lucas recovered, Alexander showed up every evening after work, bringing not only medicine and soup, but also his comforting presence. "You didn't have to do all that," Mariana commented one night, after Lucas had finally slept off his fever. "Yes, I did," Alexander replied softly. "That's what families do." The look they exchanged lasted a few seconds longer than usual, charged with something unspoken. With Lucas' recovery, the routine returned to normal, but something had changed. Meetings for activities with Lucas began to come naturally. Dinner after the museum, coffee after the park, conversations that went far beyond the practical issues of raising their son. "What was your life like before Lucas?" Alexander asked during one of these moments. Mariana smiled thoughtfully. "Empty, although I didn't know it at the time. I worked, I studied, I survived. Lucas taught me how to really live." "I know exactly what you mean," Alexander agreed. "I had everything and nothing at the same time. Success, money, power, but I lacked purpose." One Saturday, during a picnic in the park, Lucas made one of his surprisingly insightful observations. "Did you know that Tommy said your parents look at each other the same way you do?" "What do you mean, love?" Mariana asked, feeling her face heat up. "Like that," Lucas demonstrated, making an exaggeratedly dreamy expression that made Alexander choke on his coffee. The following weeks were filled with increasingly frequent moments of unplanned closeness, hands touching as they passed objects, glances that lasted a little longer than necessary, smiles shared over Lucas' antics. One afternoon at the zoo, Lucas ran ahead to see the robotic dinosaurs in a special exhibit, leaving Mariana and Alexander a few steps behind. "He's growing up so fast," Mariana commented, watching her son. "You've done an amazing job with him," Alexander replied, his hand finding hers naturally. Neither of them commented on the fact that they continued to hold hands for the rest of the walk. The most significant transformation, however, took place during Lucas' birthday party at school. Alexander had arrived early to help with the preparations, and watched as Mariana organized the last details. "You look beautiful today," he said suddenly. Mariana, wearing a simple floral dress, blushed. "I always look the same." "No, you look different," Alexander insisted softly. "Or maybe I'm seeing you with different eyes." The moment was interrupted by the arrival of the first children, but something had definitely changed. During the party, the other parents naturally assumed that they were a couple, and for the first time, neither of them rushed to correct the misunderstanding. "You make a beautiful family," commented one of the mothers. Lucas, hearing this, broke into a beaming smile. "I know." That night, after the party, while Lucas slept exhausted amidst his new presence, Mariana and Alexander sat on the apartment's small balcony. "I think we need to talk," Alexander began. About how I can no longer imagine my life without you in it. Not just as Lucas's mother, but as you." The silence that followed was filled with the sound of the night city and the rapid beating of two hearts. "I'm afraid," Mariana finally admitted. "Afraid of ruining what we've built, of confusing things for Lucas." "I'm afraid too," Alexander confessed. "But maybe some fears are worth facing." Before they could continue the conversation, they heard Lucas' sleepy voice. "Mom, Mr. Reed, can I sleep with you tonight?" They exchanged a meaningful glance, knowing that any decision they made would affect not only their lives, but especially that of the little one who had brought them together so unexpectedly. "Of course, love," Mariana replied, getting up. "Let's all go to sleep." That night marked the beginning of something new, not yet defined, but full of possibilities. Like a seed planted in spring, it would need time, care, and patience to fully blossom. Summer arrived in Boston with an unprecedented heat wave, but it wasn't just the temperature that was high. The romantic tension between Mariana and Alexander had become almost palpable, fueled by lingering glances and accidental touches that made them both question the nature of their relationship. One particularly hot afternoon, while Lucas took part in his swimming lesson, Mariana and Alexander watched from the pool's bleachers. "He's progressing very well," Alexander commented, his eyes fixed on his son who was crossing the pool with determined strokes. "Yes, he's—" Mariana stopped when she felt Alexander's hand discreetly touch hers. The contact, although subtle, sent goosebumps down her arm. "We need to talk," he said softly, "about us." Before they could continue, Lucas emerged from the pool, running towards her with a beaming smile. "See? I managed to swim by myself." The moment was interrupted, but the word us echoed in Mariana's mind. That night, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana received a message from Alexander. "Dinner with me tomorrow, just the two of us. We need to sort this out." Mariana stared at her cell phone for several long minutes before replying. "Okay." Mrs. Martinez, always perceptive, noticed her agitation the next morning. "Mi hija, your heart is dancing in your eyes. Is it that obvious?" Mariana asked, nervously straightening her clothes for the 10th time. "Love always is, darling." The restaurant chosen by Alexander was elegant but discreet, overlooking the harbor. Mariana arrived first, her hands shaking slightly as she adjusted the navy blue dress she had bought especially for the occasion. Alexander showed up minutes later without his usual business suit, opting for a casual shirt that made him look more approachable, more human. "You look beautiful," he said, pulling out a chair for her. The beginning of dinner was filled with safe conversations about Lucas, work, and everyday life. But after the first wine, the real questions began to emerge. "When did that change?" Alexander asked softly. "When did we stop being just Lucas, parents?" Mariana played with her wineglass. "Maybe we were never just that. I'm afraid," he admitted. "Afraid of ruining everything, of hurting you or Lucas." "I'm afraid too," she confessed. "We've built something so special in these months. What if we could build something even more special?" The silence that followed was full of possibilities. Alexander reached across the table, touching Mariana's fingers gently. "Ever since that night with Lucas being sick," he continued, "I've realized that I don't just want to be part of his life. I want to be part of your life too." "Alexander, let me finish," he asked gently. "You've shown me a different world, Mariana. A world where success isn't measured by numbers in a bank account, but by smiles on our son's face. Where power doesn't come from million-dollar contracts, but from the ability to make someone happy." Silent tears began to stream down Mariana's face. "You changed me," he continued. "Or maybe you just showed me who I should have been all along." "I'm so scared," Mariana whispered. "What if it doesn't work out? What if we hurt Lucas?" "What if it does?" Alexander replied softly. "What if we can give Lucas the family he so desperately wants?" At that moment, as if by fate, Mariana's cell phone rang. It was Mrs. Martinez. "Lucas had a nightmare," she informed her. "He's asking for both of you." 20 minutes later, they were in Mariana's apartment. Lucas, still trembling slightly, calmed down instantly when he saw the two of them. "I dreamt that you were leaving," he sobbed, "that we were no longer a family." Alexander and Mariana exchanged a meaningful look over their son's head. "That will never happen, love," Mariana promised, her hand finding Alexander's naturally. "Never," Alexander reinforced, squeezing her hand. After Lucas fell asleep again, they stayed in the living room, the silence between them laden with decisions not made. "Maybe," Mariana began hesitantly, "maybe we can try. For us, not just for Lucas." Alexander moved closer, touching her face gently. "Are you sure?" In response, Mariana leaned in and kissed him. It was a soft kiss, full of promise and possibility. "Wow!" A sleepy little voice interrupted them. Lucas was standing in the bedroom doorway, a huge smile on his face. "Bedtime, young man," Alexander laughed, picking up his son. "Are you getting married now?" Lucas asked hopefully. One thing at a time. Love, Mariana replied, blushing. But when her eyes met Alexander's, they both knew that something fundamental had changed. The fear was still there, but now it was overcome by the hope of a future together. Stay? Lucas asked Alexander sleepily. Just today? Alexander looked at Mariana, who nodded slightly. That night, for the first time, the three of them slept together in Lucas' small bed, like a real family. It wasn't perfect, it wasn't conventional, but it was theirs. Outside, the city continued its frenetic pace, but inside that small apartment, three hearts beat in tune, united by a love that transcended conventions and fears. The transformation was complete. They were no longer just two adults sharing the upbringing of a child. They were a family, built not by blood or obligation, but by choice and love. Autumn was painting Boston in golden hues when the first big storm hit Mariana and Alexander's newly formed relationship. It didn't come in the form of fights or disagreements, but through an apparently innocent proposal that would shake the foundations of everything they had built. Change? Mariana repeated the word as if it were in a foreign language. To your house? They were in Alexander's office at Reed Enterprises, where he had invited her to lunch. Lucas was at school, and the moment seemed perfect to discuss the future. It makes sense, Alexander argued gently. The mansion has more than enough space. Lucas would have a bigger bedroom, a garden to play in, a whole library. But that's not the point, Mariana interrupted, getting up from her leather chair. My apartment may be small, but it's our home. It has our history. We can build new stories, he insisted. Think of the opportunities for Lucas. The discussion went on for days. Each time the subject came up, new aspects were revealed. It wasn't just about moving house, it was about identity, independence, and values. I don't want Lucas to grow up thinking that money solves everything, Mariana explained one evening as they washed the dishes together in their small apartment. And I don't want him to miss out on opportunities because of our pride, Alexander retorted. The tension began to affect Lucas, who was always sensitive to his parents' mood swings. One afternoon, after his swimming lesson, he asked a question that took them both by surprise. Why are you two sad? Mariana and Alexander exchanged guilty glances. We're not sad, love, Mariana tried to explain. Just talking about some changes. Is it because of the big house? Lucas asked, surprising them. Tommy said he saw on the internet that Dad lives in a mansion. The silence that followed was deafening. Alexander knelt down to his son. What do you think about that, champ? Lucas thought for a moment, his expression surprisingly serious for a 4-year-old. I like our house, he finally said. There's Grandma Martinez and I can see the stars from the balcony. But, he hesitated, I also like Daddy's library. It was the first time that Lucas had called Alexander Daddy naturally, without being told. The moment should have been one of joy, but the complexity of the situation weighed on everyone. That evening, after putting Lucas to bed, Mariana met Alexander on the balcony, his usual place for serious conversations. We need to find a middle ground, she said softly. I know, he replied, pulling her close. Maybe we're going about this the wrong way. What do you mean? What if, instead of you moving in with me or me moving in with you, we looked for a new place, a place that's ours, with our own history to build on? The proposal took Mariana by surprise. A fresh start? Exactly. A place that is neither mine nor yours, but ours, big enough to make Lucas comfortable, but not as ostentatious as the mansion. And, he added with a smile, it needs to have a balcony to see the stars. The idea began to take shape over the next few days. Together, they started looking for houses in familiar neighborhoods, not far from their current apartment. Lucas took an active part in the visits, always checking that there was enough room for his dinosaurs and the telescope. But there was still another issue to be resolved. I want to keep working, Mariana declared during one of the house searches, and finish my degree. I never suggested otherwise, Alexander replied, surprised. I know, but I need you to understand. I don't just want to be the successful businessman's girlfriend. I need to keep my independence, even if we're together. Alexander pulled her close, kissing her forehead. That's exactly why I fell in love with you. Your strength, your determination. I would never want to change them. The solution came unexpectedly through Mrs. Martinez. During one of her Sunday breakfasts, she mentioned a house for sale a few blocks away. It has a wonderful garden, she commented, and it's close enough for me to keep pampering my nieto. The house was perfect, a 3-story building with classic architecture, big enough to be comfortable but not ostentatious. The garden was spacious, with a tree perfect for a treehouse, and most importantly, it had a large balcony overlooking the sky. "We could make an observatory up here," Alexander commented, already imagining the possibilities. "Can this be my room?" Lucas asked excitedly, running through the room closest to the future observatory. Mariana watched with tears in her eyes. It was a perfect compromise. Not too much, not too little, just enough. "Are you sure?" Alexander asked softly, hugging her from behind as they watched Lucas plan where to put each dinosaur. "I am," she replied. "It's a new beginning, but we're not abandoning who we are." The decision was made. The house would be renovated before the move, with each family member contributing their preferences. An office for Mariana to continue her studies, a smaller but cozy library, a playroom that could be converted as Lucas grew. "Do you know what that means?" Lucas asked one evening, as they watched the stars from their current balcony for the last time. "What, love? That we're a real family now." Mariana and Alexander exchanged an emotional look. The choices they had made weren't just about a house. They were about building a future together, respecting each other's pasts and individualities. "We've always been a real family," Alexander replied, hugging them both. "Now we're just writing a new chapter." The move was scheduled for the beginning of winter, a full cycle since the night it all began, when a baby was left on a doorstep, forever changing 3 destinies. Moving day dawned cold and clear, typical of early winter in Boston. Mariana woke up before the alarm, her heart beating with a mixture of anxiety and anticipation. Next to her, Lucas was still sound asleep, cuddled up with his favorite dinosaur. "It's today, little one," she whispered, stroking her son's hair. Apartment 302 was unrecognizable, full of carefully labeled boxes. Each boxed object carried a story, a memory from the last 4 years. Mrs. Martinez appeared early, as usual, but this time with tears in her eyes. "Mejia," she hugged Mariana tightly. "Promise you won't forget this old woman." "How could I?" Mariana replied with emotion. "You're our family. Besides, it's only a few blocks away." Alexander arrived with the professional movers, but soon realized that this would be no ordinary move. The building's neighbors showed up one by one, each wanting to help in some way. Catherine brought coffee and cakes for everyone. Gloria insisted on supervising the packing of fragile items, and even the usually reclusive Mr. Thompson from the 2nd floor showed up to say goodbye. "Mom, can I take my telescope in the car with us?" Lucas asked, already dressed and excited about the change. "Of course, love. It'll be the first thing we set up in the new house." While the movers worked, Mariana went through every room in the apartment, memories flooding her mind. The first night with Lucas, his first steps across the living room, the nights studying at the small kitchen table, the first kiss with Alexander on the balcony. "Is everything all right?" Alexander asked softly, finding her standing in the middle of Lucas' empty room. "Yes," she smiled through her tears. "Just saying goodbye." He hugged her from behind, resting his chin on her shoulder. "Do you know what I love most about you? Your ability to cherish every moment, every memory." "I learned that from Lucas," she replied. "He taught me to see the magic in simple things." The move took all day. When they arrived at their new home, it was already dusk. Lucas immediately ran to his new room, dragging his telescope. "Can I set it up now?" "Please, please, let's get something to eat first." Mariana laughed. "Pizza's on the way." That first night in the new house was chaotic and perfect at the same time. They sat on the living room floor surrounded by boxes, eating pizza and planning where each thing would go. "The observatory will be ready in 2 weeks," Alexander commented, showing Lucas the blueprints. "And can I paint my room space blue?" Lucas asked hopefully. "Of course you can," Mariana smiled. "It's your space." After Lucas finally fell asleep in his new room, exhausted but happy, Mariana and Alexander went up to the balcony on the top floor. The view of the city was different from there, but the sky was just as starry. "I have something for you," Alexander said, taking a small box out of his pocket. Mariana's heart raced. "Alexander, it's not a ring," he smiled, noticing her nervousness. "Not yet. It's a key." Inside the box was a golden key with a small planet as a key ring. "It's the key to your office," he explained. "I had it specially refurbished. It has a study table, a small library, Everything you need to continue your studies and work on your projects. Mariana kissed him, tears of gratitude streaming down her face. Thank you for understanding. Always. Over the next few days, the house came to life. The empty walls were filled with photos. Lucas at different ages, moments with Mrs. Martinez, their first Christmas together, Mariana's graduation from the technical course in administration. Lucas' room became a little universe in itself, with space blue walls decorated with fluorescent constellations. His dinosaurs found a special place on specially designed shelves, and the telescope was given a corner by the window, eagerly awaiting the completion of the observatory. One afternoon, while they were organizing the library, Lucas made an interesting discovery. Look, Mom, a letter. It was the original letter from Lucas' biological mother, which Mariana had carefully kept all these years. Alexander sat very still as she read it aloud. She knew, he finally said, his voice breaking. Regina knew exactly what she was doing when she chose you. And now? Lucas asked, looking at the photo of his birth mother with curiosity. Are you my real parents? Mariana and Alexander exchanged a meaningful look. Love, Mariana began. Family isn't just about blood. It's about love, choices and commitment. Like when we chose this house together? Lucas asked. Exactly, Alexander smiled. Every day we choose to be a family. That evening, after an impromptu dinner in the still semi-organized kitchen, the three of them went up to look at the stars. The observatory wasn't ready yet, but the balcony offered a perfect view of the night sky. Look, Lucas pointed excitedly. A shooting star. Make a wish, love, Mariana whispered. Lucas closed his eyes in concentration, then cracked a smile. I don't need to. I already have everything I wanted. Alexander hugged them both, feeling deep gratitude for the fate that had brought them together in such an unlikely way. Their new home wasn't just a physical space. It was a symbol of their journey together, a testament to the fact that the best families are those built on love, respect, and understanding. The lights of Boston shone in the distance, but there, on that balcony, under the stars, three hearts beat in perfect harmony, celebrating not just a new home, but the continuation of a story that began on a cold winter's night, with a baby left on a doorstep and a love that transcended all expectations. The following spring brought more than flowers to the garden of the new house. It also brought a series of significant changes for the family. The observatory was finally ready, quickly becoming Lucas and Alexander's favorite place for their space exploration nights, as they called them. One such evening, while Mariana was finishing an important piece of work for college in her office, she heard the two of them giggling from upstairs. Mom, Lucas shouted, running down the stairs. Come and see. Daddy found Jupiter. The natural use of the word daddy still warmed Mariana's heart. It had become more frequent in recent months, especially after the move. Climbing the stairs, she found Alexander adjusting the professional telescope that now occupied the center of the observatory. Just in time, he smiled. Jupiter's moons are particularly visible today. As Lucas watched in amazement, Mariana noticed something different in Alexander's demeanor. He seemed nervous, almost anxious, constantly checking his watch. Is everything all right? She whispered. Perfect, he replied with a mysterious smile, just waiting for the right moment. At exactly 9:37 p.m., Alexander asked for everyone's attention. Lucas, remember when you helped me choose something special last week? Lucas nodded animatedly, barely able to contain his excitement. How about we show Mom? Alexander adjusted the telescope to a new point in the sky. Mariana, can you take a look? Intrigued, she approached the telescope. Through the lens, she saw a particular set of stars, and, in the center of the field of view, something shone differently. That's a ring, Alexander added, already kneeling beside her, holding a small velvet box. I bought a star and registered it in your name. The ring is just an earthly symbol of my heavenly commitment to you. Lucas jumped with excitement. Say yes, Mom. Say yes. Mariana alternated her gaze between the ring, a delicate solitaire with tiny stars engraved on the band, and the hopeful faces of Alexander and Lucas. Did you plan all this? She asked, tears in her eyes. Lucas helped me choose the ring. Alexander smiled. And Mrs. Martinez kept the secret for 2 weeks, which must be a record. Well? Lucas asked anxiously. Are you getting married? Mariana pulled them both into a tight embrace. Yes, she whispered. 1,000 times yes. News of the engagement spread quickly. Mrs. Martinez organized a small celebration the next day, bringing together all the old neighbors and close friends. "I knew from day one," she declared with emotion. "When I saw the three of you together for the first time, I knew it was destiny." Preparations for the wedding began soon after. Mariana insisted on something simple and meaningful, gently refusing the suggestions of big events that Alexander's family expected. "I want something that reflects our history," she explained, "something that Lucas can remember fondly." The date was set for late summer, and the venue chosen was the garden of the new house. The tree where Alexander was building the treehouse for Lucas would be decorated with lights, transforming the space into a magical setting. One afternoon, while they were organizing the details, Lucas asked a question that took everyone by surprise. "After you get married, can I have a little brother?" Mariana and Alexander exchanged surprised glances. They hadn't discussed the possibility of expanding the family. "Would you like that?" Alexander asked cautiously. "Yes," Lucas exclaimed. "I could teach him all about dinosaurs and stars." That night, after Lucas had gone to sleep, the subject came up again. "We never thought of that," Mariana commented, nestling in Alexander's arms on the balcony. "Is it something you want?" he asked softly. "Maybe," she smiled. "But first, let's get married." The big day arrived with a perfectly blue sky. The garden was transformed. Delicate lights hung from the large tree. White and blue flowers decorated the path to the small altar. And Lucas' telescope had been strategically positioned for later night observations. Lucas, wearing a small suit that matched Alexander's, carried the rings with all the seriousness that his 5 years allowed. When Mariana appeared, wearing a simple but elegant dress with little stars embroidered on the hem, Alexander felt tears escape. She walked through the garden arm in arm with Mr. Patterson, who had offered to drive her after learning that her father would not be able to come from China for the ceremony. The vows were simple and profound. Alexander spoke about finding his true north on a starry winter's night, even though he didn't know it at the time. Mariana spoke about how true love sometimes comes in unexpected packages, and how some families are chosen by the heart. And now, the celebrant smiled. "For the first time, I present to you the Reed Chen family." The party that followed was intimate and joyful. Lucas danced with all the guests, proudly proclaiming that they were now, officially, a family. Later, when most of the guests had left, the three of them went up to the observatory. The sky was particularly starry, as if celebrating with them. "Look," Lucas pointed. "Mom's star." Alexander adjusted the telescope, finding the star he had registered for Mariana. "Now it shines for our whole family." "Our family," Mariana repeated, savoring the words. Lucas yawned, tiredness finally catching up with him. "Can I sleep with you tonight?" "Of course you can, champ," Alexander smiled, picking up his son. That night, lying in their king-size bed, with Lucas sleeping peacefully between them, Mariana and Alexander exchanged glances full of love and promises. "Thank you," she whispered. "For what?" "For completing our family." Alexander kissed her forehead softly. "No, my love. Thank you for showing me what family really is." Outside, the stars continued their eternal glow, silent witnesses to a love story that began with a baby left on a doorstep and culminated in a family united not by blood, but by choices, love, and destiny. And in his deep sleep, Lucas smiled, secure in his parents, love, dreaming perhaps of dinosaurs dancing among the stars, in a universe where all families are perfect just the way they are. What if true love wasn't about finding the perfect person, but about building the perfect family for you? Leave your opinion in the comments. Thank you for watching. If you enjoyed the story, please subscribe to our channel and leave a comment below letting us know what you thought. Your feedback and support mean a lot to us. Stay tuned for more exciting stories.